That's what
State
you're saying.
championships.
So Anthony really found a rhythm after the first inning. How big is it for him to kind of land that slider low in the zone, just get those guys to keep on chasing?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing with Cade. When you get a pitcher that throws 4 pitches for strikes, it's really hard to handle all of them, handle the plate, the zone, the variation of timing, and he just did a really good job executing.
You just talk about, I mean, when you have a guy pitching like that, I mean, how do you manage that? Do you let him show you when he needs to come out, or what is that? Is there a
Well,
conversation?
he's good. He's a good pitcher, and he's poised. And so, I think one of the traits that I believe all great pitchers have is they don't let small things bother them and carry forward to the next pitch or the next inning and the next play. And he's proven that, obviously, here through a couple weeks or 4 weeks, whatever it is. So I'm proud of him for that. He really got rolling. I don't know how many strikeouts he had, but it felt like a lot.
15 strikeouts overall.
He had 15?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a great performance.
7 in a row at one point.
Yeah, I do know that. That was 7 in a row after the mound visit. I'm going to go visit him in the bullpen, so he just starts the game like that next time.
What'd you say?
That you had with him, I guess, the first inning.
Yeah.
You talked with him, but what was that conversation?
Just reset, start the
Same
game
thing as
over.
last
Yeah,
week.
told the umpire we're starting the game over from right now. Yeah.
And so what do you think just was the biggest difference with him from like before and after that? mound visit?
Yeah, I think he pitched with great tempo. I thought the intent was great. Hard to say that it wasn't before that. He struck the first guy out of the game, and then we got to 2 strikes quickly. He just didn't finish the 2-hole guy off and walked him, and the other guy kind of hooked one down the line, and 4-hole guy got a big hit. That's why it's so important to play defense well in the first inning. The pitcher's trying to settle in, the umpire's trying to settle in. As Coach Bertman would call it, the inevitable 2. There it was, and he really bounced back after that.
Did you tell them the same thing last week?
I know Coach Yeski went to the mound. I don't think I went to the mound in that game against Nebraska. I think we probably could have helped him in the first inning of Nebraska a little bit. There was an open base when they got the 2-out hit, and we could have pitched around it. But you have so much faith in our offense, and then his ability to execute pitches. It was kind of like more of like, hey, there's an open base here, just go execute. And the guy got a 2-out single off of him. But there's not much to pick at really for the last 10 innings of his pitching. It's been pretty quality and exactly what we brought him here for and exactly what we need.
And Cade and Anthony, they got to that's the kind of pitch count you wanted?
Yeah, kind of my rule of thumb, in the non-conference is you're never going to start an inning over 90, and he was at 80 starting the 7th inning. And
finished at 100, right?
94, 95. I had 90. Okay, so I didn't count the last pitch for the strikeout. No, that's okay. I know he started the last inning at 80. We had Zach up. Had we gotten traffic in that last inning, he would have come in the 7th.
How do you decide between you and Yeski who comes into to talk to a guy just to sort of?
I just decide and I don't mean this like how it sounds. Like if it's a pitching specific thing, I'll either ask him what he wants relayed, or I'll have him go to the mound. If it's something with game tempo or a mindset switch, I will go to the mound. Yeah, and he can go whenever he wants. Like I want to use all our visits. The basketball coaches you guys get annoyed with that use all their timeouts all the time. Like I would be one of those.
You do it with the hitters too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's always a purpose behind it. But it's really just who's the pitcher, and then as the season goes on in the postseason, I tend to do a little bit more because the hay's in the barn as far as the execution and the pitching stuff. It becomes more about game management. So if it's a game management thing, that's when I would usually go, or just to help the guy reset with his mental game.
Part of the reason why you're doing that also, and maybe even doing it more as the year goes along, is to just sort of break up the rhythm of the hitters too.
I wouldn't say that. It's on the defensive side, it's always about us. Yeah, it's on the offensive side there could be something like that, but on the defensive side, it's always about us.
So if they cover first, if they put a guy on first base, you got 2 guys score on your squeeze, right?
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't cover first base.
Well, the problem was you have the fastest guy on the planet in Chris Stanfield made it a no play, so the guy ate the ball. We got to have him run a little slower next time. So.
Talk about Tanner getting the start against the
Yeah.
team.
You know, this was just not to be very clear. That had nothing to do with anything other than today's game and something that we saw that we wanted to evaluate in the matchup that could help us in today's game. And that was it. We actually contemplated running the exact same lineup out as against this guy. And he's done a nice job. You know, there's not many freshmen that have had 4 quality starts the way Tripp Patterson has. And so it had nothing to do with anything other than what we felt was best to win the game today.
Was it just location with him today? Because felt like he was kind of going east to west.
You know, he was. I think he had, good pitchers have velocity, movement, and they can locate. I think as a left-hander, he has really good extension, so the ball gets on you a little quicker than what the velocity suggests. So he has a velocity component. He definitely can move the ball, as you said, east and west. And he located, pretty good. And he did a nice job changing speeds. And I actually thought it was a pretty good offensive game, and we were close to being really good. Like, we weren't really good, but we were close to being really good. And I kind of let him out of here, just go get some rest, and then we'll break it down before we get started tomorrow. We were close to being really good today. They've been pretty good for like whatever many games in a row, so I'm good with 6-2 as much as I am, 11-9 for sure.
Is he probably the best pitcher you guys have faced among the non-power teams?
I don't even know. I mean, he's performed well. I mean, the statistics were pretty good. I mean, so much I think Bill even asked me about it on the radio interview yesterday. Like, they kind of jump off the page.
Yeah.
So he'll probably win some games. I would assume he'll win some games. I'm impressed with the athleticism. I'm impressed with the delivery, and I was impressed with just kind of how he carried himself. And he wasn't in awe of this, which, young players can be. Even on our own team, sometimes right off the start of a season or a career.
But Jared was seeing the ball pretty well.
Yeah, he had a good day today.
Yeah.
He was working before the game very intentfully, and he's just a really good hitter now. Like, it's one of those, it's not going to be off or down for long, and it really hasn't been. He lined out one time last night. It might have even been his last at bat. Just the quality of the at bats have been phenomenal. His evolution as a hitter and as a player is something I'm very proud of, from zone management to contact to hitting with runners in scoring position. Like today, I mean, that's a great at bat, the homer. I mean, there's an open base there, and he knows that, and they got a little greedy when they went 1-2, and he made him pay. And that's like a really good hitter, understanding that he's going to get pitched around. There's an open base. I think the umpire maybe got a call against him. Maybe he missed a pitch, but then he was on the one mistake that he got. And just a sign of how good a hitter he is.
You've had a couple guys kind of talk about the mentality when they get down with 2 strikes, but they still feel like they're in control.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something on the mental side of things? you
Yeah,
guys kind of bring?
for sure. I felt like we struck out a couple more times today than we have. But, I mean, going into the day, I want to say we had the fewest strikeouts in the league. And, that's not always the case. And it's not because we're not always good with 2 strikes. It's just, kind of how we hit. You end up in 2 strike counts and more often. But these guys are battling and taking it upon themselves to put the ball in play, put pressure on the opponent, and it's been good.
We've talked about this kind of over and over again, but just Chris in that 9-hole just feels
Yeah,
like it's
he's
such
a great
solid-
player. I love him. Yeah, I mean, that's a big deal that he's here. I mean, we obviously did great with the transfers that we brought in. I mean, that was a big deal for him to come here. And, I'm really proud of how he's evolving as a player and improving. And he's really, really making a big impact. It might get lost, with, Jared's hitting homers and, Danny's got 1 billion RBIs and Kirill, everybody wants to talk about him because he's a freshman, and rightfully so for all those guys. But one of the most important players on our team is Chris Stanfield.
With Chris, I mean, you've obviously mentioned the Paul Skeens at bats, but like, what about his sort of approach at the plate and ability to, I guess, put the ball in play that sort of?
Yeah, I see. I saw 2 things. Obviously, he's an electric player. Like, he has God-given ability that you cannot teach and that you don't see in college baseball frequently when they're that athletic. If they have any skill at all, pro baseball is usually eating those guys up out of high school. And then secondly, just a really good competitive nature. And that stood out to me, when he was across the field from us. And so you combine those things. If there's a physical baseball thing for us to do, I believe in myself and my staff that we can improve it. And I think you put all those things together and you get a pretty good player right now.
In the minor leagues, they've added the whole. They've already had this in the minor leagues, but in spring training, they've added the ability to challenge balls and strikes from pitchers and hitters. Like, what would that be like if it was in college baseball? Would you be okay with that?
I didn't even know that. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with the way things are. How's it going?
People are using it.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Anthony,
Yeah.
would you want it? Okay. Well, if Anthony wants it, I want it. If he doesn't, I don't want it.
Can you talk about using those challenges early and maybe what you saw? Do you guys have someone designated to look at?
No, we're not there yet. But I did that's one of the next things I would like to incorporate in the budget. If that's possible, email Dan Gaston and tell him you think we need it in the dugout.
Replay coordinator?
For me, I'll just give you this. If it takes a run off the board, like the foul ball would have, or puts a run on the board, I'm going to challenge it, even if I'm not sure, because that could be the difference in winning or losing a one-run game.
One more, Coach.
With the batter's eye in center field, are you okay with how that is out there, even though the batter's eye is a little bit of that black mesh out there instead of it being like just a black wall? Does that make sense?
Probably, but I haven't thought for 1 second about it. We're seeing the ball good and scoring runs, so I'd have to look at it a little bit more.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. See you tomorrow. Thanks for coming earlier today.